7 major negatives before you move to Virginia Beach. You need to know about them. We're going to talk about all of that on the Living in Coastal Virginia channel. Number 1 on this list, and if you can't stand this, I totally understand it. I grew up in the military, and Sean, you lived here your entire life, right?
Yep.
Every other second, it seems, if you're close to a base, is being interrupted by jet noise. What's absolutely hilarious sometimes is they fly in formation, or they'll have several in a row. So you're literally sitting there, talk for 30 seconds, wait 30 seconds, talk for 30 seconds, wait 30 seconds. And the 20 minutes kind of like coffee meeting that you had planned ends up being a full hour because you're constantly being interrupted. Now you can move indoors, but in some of these flight patterns, it is so noisy that it is impossible even indoors to have conversation. There are, however, a few areas that you can get into in neighborhoods, areas to live, to avoid this. So it's gonna be much, much louder on the entrances and exits of the base, and this thing's called an ACUS map, or that's how we call it here. So check out that map to check out the areas so you can avoid that as much as possible. Now, obviously, we have an enormous military population here, so we have tons of bumper stickers that say, I love jet noise, or I love the sounds of freedom. I kind of fall a little bit in that category, but if you cannot stand the sound of jet noise in certain areas, you better get used to it or find somewhere else to live. Next is coastal storms and flooding. These go hand in hand, and you're gonna be looking at flood zones and evacuation zones. Flood zone AE is the 100-year flood zone. Flood zone X is the 500-year plain flood zone. And you want to kind of pay attention to these as you're looking at properties or moving into the area. The reality is that humans love the water. They love playing in it. They love surfing on it, boating on it. They love living next to it and watching it, the sunset go over the water. For a lot of people, this is their legacy. This is what they're looking forward to in retirement. And so if you're going to live next to the water, there are just inherent risks that come alongside that. To avoid those risks as much as possible, check out a website called floodfactor.com, where you can actually go and see what actually happened during the last several storms, so you can see if the area that you're going into is high risk or not. And then also you want to make sure you get an elevation certificate before you buy, so you have a really good sense of what that flood policy is going to look like. But normal-ish for the area can be anywhere between, say, $500 and maybe even $2,000 a year for a flood policy. The higher and higher you go, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, or even more, depending on the value of the property, the more basically what the insurance is saying is that your house is risky. And so if it's a really high policy, you just may want to consider that. Now this next one is a nasty one, and it is freaking humidity. It is downright offensive here. I walk outside, I immediately start developing pit stains. It is disgusting. Sean is smiling behind the camera because he knows how bad it is out there. During the summer, humidity is just gross. So if you have hair that's sensitive to humidity,
it's the humidity!
You may not want to check out here. Matter of fact, you probably wouldn't want to check out any coastal city because humidity is just going to be high there, period. But it gets really warm, and it's probably not as bad as Florida or maybe even some places in like Alabama and Louisiana. But it does get hot and humid during the summers, and that's something you have got to be ready for. Now, the walkability of Virginia Beach, for the most part, just kind of sucks. There's not a great public transportation system. It exists, but it's meh compared to other major cities. Now, there's really only one major spot, I think, in all of Virginia Beach that really fits the profile of walkability, and I think Sean knows exactly what I'm going to say is...
Yeah, the Vibe District.
Vibe District all day long. Now, Town Center, you have a few condo and apartment building like options there, but for the most part, it's all some, people are driving into. There's a reason they have towers full of like parking garages that you can go there. There's not really a whole lot of option when it comes to like live and walk. And most people are not going to be walking from the surrounding neighborhoods because you have to cross major highways just to get into that walkable area. Chicks Beach is another option, but you've got Great Neck and Shore Drive, which are major roads that you'd have to cross, and the sidewalks are right up against that major road. It's just not that walkable. Yes, there are people that live in those neighborhoods, walk to the local dive bar or a place out to eat, but when you're looking at walkability, walk out your front door, go on a bike, take a nice little hike around the neighborhood, go to the grocery store, get a haircut, get some Chipotle. The best possible area in Virginia Beach, by far, is the Vibe District. This is where people go if they want to have a livable and walkable and bikeable place to live. The only downside is you have a little bit of jet noise there because it's on the flight path. But You have a 5-minute walk or bike ride to the oceanfront, and you have the Vibe District, which is the local arts and local restaurants and local vendors in the area that are absolutely fantastic. So, unfortunately, most of Virginia Beach is all spread out, and you're gonna need a car to go about anywhere that you want to possibly go. But if you want walkability, there's really only one option, and that is the Vibe District. Hey, if you are looking for a walkable neighborhood, someplace that you can live and walk out your front door and have access to just about everything, that is what our team does. We can help you with both the finding of the real estate and the financing of the real estate, and we would love to be that resource of choice. All of our contact information should be on the screen now, and you can jump directly into our calendars in the link below in the description. Now, the next one, no professional sports. I know this is a sore topic for Sean behind the camera, as he is a major sports fan. He is a Dolphins man through and through, so he loves suffering. One of my best friends is a Steelers fan. We have a lot of good friends that love sports, but there's nothing huge in the area. We have the Tides, which is a minor league baseball, which is, it's okay to go watch from time to time. If you're a hockey fan, you can go watch the Admirals, but we're not really known for our hockey in the area, which is really interesting because our area is probably the second largest metro area from DC all the way south. And we have a little under 2 million people servicing the area. The complaints have been from other developers that our population density just isn't enough. There's not enough people to drive to or to support a major league team. I would totally disagree. I think there are enough sports fanatics in our area that would definitely support it. And there are 2 people that are famous that are basically looking at trying to make that come true. We have Emmitt Smith and Pharrell Williams, who are both bidding on contracts to take over an area in Norfolk called Military Circle. And one of those contracts includes a sport complex, which could be a major attraction for hosting sporting events. Number 6 is tourism on this list, and it is definitely a love-hate of this area. Love because it drives a ton of money to the area and supports a ton of local jobs. Hate because most of the locals, it drives them bonkers. During tourist season, which is basically May to September, there is an influx of out-of-towners, and all of 264 becomes packed up on the weekends. All the way down at the ocean front towards the front there is absolutely packed with cars and tourists who don't know what the hell they're doing or where they're walking, and they're walking across the street, not paying attention where they're going. It drives the locals bonkers. So if you can't stand tourism, which I'll admit, Sean, on occasion, do you go down there and enjoy it a little bit?
Yeah, the boardwalk's nice.
Right, but 95% of the time I go to places where hopefully the tourists aren't, and I'm enjoying that. Now the opposite also is true. When the tourists leave town, the oceanfront is basically dead. Half those shops shut down because there's no profitability during the winter season. And that's kind of the exact time that I would like to go because I could enjoy it without all of the crowds. Now, you felt it, I felt it. Next, we're gonna talk about housing. All across America, we have seen double-digit appreciation. It feels like it is unsustainable. Unfortunately, I think it's just gonna be a slow, steady digression. I don't think we're gonna see a crash. You can go check out my housing prediction video there if you wanna see us dive deep into that. But for the purposes of today, I just wanna talk about why it's the downside of Virginia Beach. We have seen, just like every other major market, about double-digit appreciation, somewhere between 12 and 14%, depending on the area of Virginia Beach that you're looking, which means that for condos and townhomes, you're looking at an average of $265,000. For single family, something not sharing walls, the average of all of Virginia Beach last month was $450,000. Right? That's the average. There are definitely things well above that in our area. Now, there is definitely some good news to this because if you're comparing Virginia Beach to other major markets, the housing here relatively is much less expensive. Let's talk about San Diego and LA, 60% less, DC, 50% less, Miami, we're 20% less expensive there. We're about 50% less expensive than New York, 40% than Denver, 50% with Boston, and about 65% less expensive than Seattle. So if you're considering any of those major metropolitan areas and you have the ability to work remotely or move here and not take much of a pay cut, you can have one of the safest cities in America. Granted, you gotta deal with tourism and humidity, but it is going to be way less expensive relative to those other markets.